This week's project is our client's mid-century set that she had as a child. Now the goal here is to keep the wood grain and then just lighten it up, get rid of the orange tones. We're gonna see how that goes. We like to keep an open mind, so you never know, sometimes we get into it and paint is the option. But the goal here is wood grain. I like to keep the hardware all together in a bag, and I make sure to put the hardware back with it, because sometimes with this specialty hardware from like the 60s, screws are very, very specific and it would be hard to replace it, and I don't want to do all that. So especially if we might potentially be keeping the hardware, I like to make sure I have all the things separate and in a safe space in a little baggie so it doesn't get lost. After I removed the hardware, I went ahead and applied the stripper. Now, if stripping furniture intimidates you, or you don't know how to do it, or you have questions, you can go back and watch a previous video. I'll link it on here. And I go into more detail and depth of what I do and how I do it to make it so easy that anyone can do it. Some of you may wonder why I go through the process of stripping furniture instead of just sanding it. Well, there's a few different reasons. So if I am doing a stain and I know I am working with veneer, which I am on this piece, I want to use a stripper so that I'm not sanding so much and risking burning through that veneer. Once you burn through veneer, there's really no going back. Next, I like to use stripper versus sanding because it saves me time and money. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. You would think, like, how could it save you time and money? But if I just sanded this top, it probably would have taken me at least a couple of hours, maybe more, depending on how tough that finish was. And I could have burned through the veneer versus using stripper, where it takes me a few minutes to strip it and then literally a few minutes to sand it. So the proof is in the pudding, right? So I've gotten the dresser all stripped as far as with chemical stripper. Now it's not pretty, but this is going to make sanding that much easier. And I am grabbing that Surf Prep Pro foam so that I can get all those curves and edges pretty effortlessly. I will never shut up about this because it is just one of my favorite things that I have in my shop. I do have a discount code in my description, so make sure you check that out. If you don't have a Surf Prep, that's okay. They sell Pro Foam for other sanders. I'm using an iron-on veneer to repair that banding on the front. You just use an iron to activate the glue, and when it cools off, it's secure. And then I use a sander to smooth the edges out. One of the legs had a decent sized chunk missing, and I wanted to repair that. So I grabbed some Quick Wood by JB Weld, which is a wood epoxy. It's stronger than wood. It comes in this little tube and you just pinch off a little bit at a time. A little goes a long way. You're going to mix it with your hands. It's kind of like Play-Doh until it is a uniform color. Next, I'm going to just kind of smush it on there. It doesn't have to be a perfect shape or anything yet. I'm going to let it dry for a bit. But if you want to, you can always take a little razor and try and shape it before it dries. It does make sanding a little easier, and that's what I am doing here. Once the wood epoxy is dry, I use my sander to go in and shape it. Next up, in order to cancel out the orange tones in this wood, I am using a tan paint wash. It's just a generic tan paint. It doesn't have to be a specific color or brand. And then I mix a little bit of that with some water and create a tan wash. So this time while I'm paint washing, I am actually not wiping it back. I watered it down a little more than usual, and I am just kind of letting it soak into the grain. Now, when you are paint washing with different directions of wood grains, make sure you go with that wood grain. You don't want to just paint across it and then you're going to see these streaks of the paint wash. That's not pretty. Make sure you do it with the grain. Look how much lighter that top is after the paint wash. Since that is still not the final color I'm going for, I'm going back over it with a stain wash. I'm using the color Antique Oak by General Finishes. This is a water-based stain. I mixed in just a little bit of water and then also a little bit of an extender just to keep it from drying out too fast. And then, so I'm applying it to the whole top and then wiping it back. This is going to add a little bit more warmth to the piece without it being orange. After staining, it was time to go in and color correct the repair that I made on the foot. So I'm grabbing a Mohawk blend-all stick and just rubbing it across, making it as close to the stain color as possible. If you need to use different colors and mix them together, you can, no problem at all. So that's what I'm doing here. Will it be perfect? No. Will it look better than it did? Absolutely. Once I was happy with the color, I grabbed the Mohawk sanding sealer to just seal the color work that I did. And then that's going to create a barrier so that when I seal it with our water-based product, it will adhere. At this point, I was almost done with this piece. So I grabbed my Wagner sprayer and my General Finishes High Performance top coat and went to town. So while installing the hardware, I realized that the screws that came with the new hardware were a little too long. So I've got a great way to fix this. So this is a wire cutter tool. I think it's a wire cutter. My husband's an electrician. This is his tool, but you can screw the screw in and then you can trim it down. So I'm trying to just eyeball it here. I'm not measuring anything out, but you may want to do that if you feel like you need to, and you just squeeze it. And then you just unscrew it. You check the sides. If you need to do it a little bit more, you can. Let's see if this works. So the top drawers and the bottom drawers had two different size hardware, and so we found an adjustable drawer pull so that we can keep a uniform look without having to like search high and low on Amazon for a matching set that's 4.5 inches center to center and 5.5 inches center to center. It's very difficult to find those sizes. So this is a great option, and I will have a link to that in my description. Here's a reminder of what the pieces look like before. And here is the after. This just goes to show what doing little changes like changing the tone of the wood and adding new hardware can do for a piece. I love how this set turned out, but most importantly, my client loved it. This has become one of my top requested finishes that I do, and it looks good on everything, and you really just can't go wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. Tell me about what you love, what you hate, what you would have done differently, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can come back and follow us for more furniture flips.